You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCCW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Welcome. I'm Rick Schissler. I'm the host of the program. I'm a Silver Fox advisor and also the founder of OneBestConsult.com. The weekly business hour is coming to you from the studios of Lone Star Community Radio right here in downtown Conroe, Texas. The weekly business hour is where Montgomery County and now the entire world can access conversations about business, particularly small business. We hope that people come to our show, we listen, we provide experts, we provide conversations, we answer the mailbag, anything we can do to help you make your business more successful. The show today is just jam-packed, so I'm not going to take too long. The first question of the day, we'll save it for next week. But we've got a couple of great people with us today. I had a conversation just recently with Rich Hall. Rich Hall, the Rich Hall Group. He's been a visitor to our show, a guest before, and a supporter of our show. And he's going to be talking to us about family business, something that impacts a lot of us, that we have family businesses. And he's got some interesting observations. So I hope you'll listen to that. And then we're going to follow up with someone brand new. Been talking about this for the past, month or two. Patrick Woke. Patrick is the head of the School of Entrepreneurship and Free Enterprise at the University of St. Thomas. And Patrick has put together a unique interview format, if you will, talking to very successful entrepreneurs, talking to them about what they did, what they wouldn't do again, those kinds of issues. And I think if you listen to those interviews, it's wonderful. So today we're going to roll out the first Heart of the Hustle. That's Patrick's name for these programs, and I hope that you'll listen. That'll be in the second half of the show. Heart of the Hustle. Great, quick way to get information about what works and doesn't work. People have tried things, and you can listen and hear about how they built their business to the great success it is. So without further ado, let's listen, if you will, to Rich Hall, the Rich Hall Group, talking about what it takes to make family business a business model that works.
Well, good morning, Rich. Thank you for taking time to join us again this year on the Weekly Business Hour. And today I'm really kind of excited because we're going to talk about family business, something that I participated in, grew up in one, currently have a family business relationship with one of our children. So this is a topic that I think is really germane, not only to me, but so many people out there that have or want to have family businesses. So let's start off and talk about what are really, in your opinion, the pros and cons of being in a family business.
Well, hey, Rick, thanks again for having me. You know, probably the major factor for me that I've enjoyed working for, we have a family-owned business ourselves, and really working in this area is that you really have control over how you treat your people, how you treat employees, and the culture that you're trying to create. And when you have, an environment where you say, well, you know what, I don't have to adhere exactly to the budget. I've got an employee that's got a problem or an issue. I really want to help them out. Or, we want to go down a different path. You can be more nimble and switch gears. And with that, you have a lot of the control and flexibility that, say, you may not have in other type companies.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of advantages to it. And I really think people have to look inside and say, just like I try to counsel my clients, what is it that you really want out of your business? And if it involves things like you're talking about, a family business can really help you reach some of those goals, particularly those personal things that you want to do with the business. So, but on the other side, there's some cons. I mean, let's talk about that. One of the things you mentioned in the wonderful article that you have was the fact that, okay, you bring in particularly a child. I was a child coming into a business that actually my grandparents started, and I was raised in the business. But when you come into business as a young person, or even if you're older, things can kind of go sideways real quick.
Yeah, one of the challenges that happens in family-owned businesses is as the business starts to grow, like all businesses, there's certain roles that are needed. And quite often what you look for is, can a family member, fulfill that role versus, and let's say a different kind of business where it would say, who is the right person for that role? How do we recruit the right person? So a lot of times you'll have family members that may grow up, and then if there's a slot, like let's say that we need somebody to do sales because the original owner did it and founder did it all their life. And then now, and I'm going to pick on Junior for a second. Let's say Junior grew up, Junior's got a great personality, and they put him over sales. But is he the right candidate? Does he have the right training? And sometimes you have to overcome some of the, maybe whether it's gaps in training or, just really getting the level of performance where it needs to be. And, that's it on one side. On the other side, you've got a lot of loyalty with family-owned businesses. A lot of the kids grew up in the business. They know it inside and out. They even have the relationships that their, owners had established through all the years. So there's a lot of pros and cons here. And I'm a big fan. It's just, you want to make sure that you run it like a business and not just an extension of the family itself.
That is one of the best points. And I commented to you, I think, on an email exchange based on my experience in working with clients in family business. You got to start with the fact that you're running a business. It is a business. And my father used to say, well, business stands on its own. We're here and we have to do, because the entitlement issue it's amazing. We were in a cash business, so we had cash registers. Mm-hmm. And in those days, you wrote a check to get cash. And I was told that when you write a check for $5 or $10 back then, that was significant. You gave it to someone else to cash in the register. You didn't put your hand in the register and start pulling money out, because you're an example to employees, and employee theft was a real issue. So things have to be done a little bit differently. But
yeah, see, that's a tough one. It's a good point you bring up, Rick, because we've seen circumstances. For example, if you own the business and you have control, again, ultimately, if you're the owner, you're responsible. So you have control over, what profits, if you want to take profits out of the company, if you want to reinvest in the company, if you want to hire more employees, you have control over that. It's easy for family-owned businesses to start treating the family business sort of like their own personal piggy bank or slush fund. And examples would be things like, oh, well, all the family members need new cell phones, and let's expense it to the company. Or we're going to take a trip and expense that back to the company. And it's not saying that that's wrong, but what you have to watch for is, over time, more and more of that happening, it can then affect the budgets of the company and the financial side. And I really recommend try to keep as much separate as possible. And like you said, good words, run the business like a business.
Yeah, just one quick story on that. I actually experienced was involved with a case where family business and the owner, the father and the mother, the father ran the business, had built a good business, but the kids treated it like a piggy bank to the point that they almost forced him into bankruptcy because he couldn't stop it. He didn't have the will to stop it. And the most amazing thing, because I knew this man and I knew how hard he worked and how well he did what he did. And to think that his children would, put their hand in the till, so to speak, so much, so often, and took so much that it nearly put him in a bankruptcy or out of business mode.
I can't tell you the times that I've seen it as well. Or an example would be, well, we got a family member that needs a job, so let's find a place for them. And then they do, and then all of a sudden, well, the family members, they want to put their kids in a private school, or they need something else. We need to bump up their income, or give them a bigger bonus. And to your point, before long, incrementally, that may not be a problem, but like a lot of things, once you give it once or twice, then it becomes expected. And then that ongoing financial burden can be tough. And if the owner has a problem with pushing back on family members, which again, a lot of times family business bleeds over into what I call a Sunday afternoon dinner conversations. It can be tough to push back. If a member of the family says, but my daughter really needs this and the company can afford it. Well, that may be so, but when you're hiring a lot of family members, you got a lot of daughters or a lot of sons, it can really add up. So you really have to be careful early on.
It's not just about money. It's about the relationship, and you kind of touched on it, with the other employees, the non-family member employees. Because I've seen that bleed, that special relationship because their family get out of hand, and then your other employees, always your best employees are the ones that leave, or you can't find good people. And it's, as a business grows, you've got more and more key positions. You can really tie yourself in knots.
That happens, a lot. One of the challenges is when you have, if it's a small business that's actually growing, and if you got a lot of really key employees, there's some really top-notch performers, what's the growth path for them? And, in a lot of companies, they can say, well, you may be a top performer, but at the end of the day, everyone knows Junior's going to end up running the company or something to that effect. So you look for ways to incentivize, promote, develop non-family members. And ultimately, as I advise some of my clients, you want the best employee for a particular role. Doesn't have to be a family member. And that can be tough in the business. But if you've got a really top performer, we all know how tough it is nowadays, keeping good people, finding good people, retaining them. And it's the same thing when you're in a business. And, with these employees, again, a lot of value and benefits of working on a family-owned business. The owners just need to be aware of that dynamic of, non-family members and what they need out of their career and their growth, or otherwise, they'll end up leaving and going somewhere else, which is a tragedy.
It happens. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of our first segment now. A lot of great information. I hope you'll stay around. We're going to take a short commercial break and be right back. And we'll continue this conversation with Rich Hall and talking about family-owned businesses, how you have to approach, how you have to manage them, the good, the bad, and the ugly, however you want to phrase it. But it's good stuff. So I hope you'll stay with us and be right back with you.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Hey y'all, it's DJ Mike from Dance Time in Texas. Join me Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. as I count down the top 10 Texas Red Dirt songs that are packing the dance floor. I'll be featuring local artists and the story behind the hits, shows in the area, as well as new songs that make you want to dance. It's Dance Time in Texas with DJ Mike on Lone Star Community Radio, 104.5 KCZW and 106.1 KZCC, Conroe, Texas, or online, irlonestar.com.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're visiting with Rich Hall today of the Rich Hall Group. He's the founder of that group. He's had an extensive experience working with family businesses and being part of a family business. So he and I share that. And so today we're going to continue our conversation about family businesses and how to successfully maneuver through the various traps that are out there so you can successfully build a family business. Now, Rich, one of the things that you point out is the importance, and we touched on it briefly in our last segment, the importance of the owner and the way they approach or treat the business. Let's kind of expand on that point a bit.
Yeah, one of the things that I work with clients on, they'll contact me, the business owners, and they'll say, hey, we really want to grow the business, or we've had stagnant sales, and maybe we need to make some changes. Maybe and people use this word a lot, maybe we need to pivot into other areas, right? And the first thing that I work with the owner on is, are you truly committed to the success of the business and the impact of what you're trying to accomplish? Okay. And I'll tell you why, because on the surface, everyone says, yes, because I want to grow and I want to get the benefits from it. But here's a reality. A lot of times when you make changes, some of those changes may be that some of the family members need to change or need to grow. Or I've had circumstances before that's been really tough where a family member may need to leave the company for a while. And the worst thing is to pay a lot of money to start initiating change, or maybe bringing somebody in to help with it. And then when it starts to getting painful, the owner says, oh, you know what? I believe in most of what we're doing, but this over here is a little bit painful. I'm not going to do it. And then they back off. And when that happens, it starts to fall apart. So it's really, like we've talked about, balancing the family, balancing the business. And then if there's substantial change or growth you want to accomplish, the owner has to be committed all the way through before starting, or otherwise it just won't happen. It won't be successful.
And it's again, back and I mentioned it before, and I guess I really would hope people get the point, if nothing else, from my perspective, of deciding what you want to do with the business. What do you want out of your business? Well, I want to retire. So but there's other things culturally, like you mentioned, and this is what it's all about. And now you've added the idea of a family member or members being part of your business. And what is it that you're hoping to achieve with that, call it model, that business model, particularly to the family? And I 1,000% agree with you that you got to make those decisions, or you're going to end up not where you want to be, for sure. And it may end up being a catastrophe, because I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I actually had an example where I was working with a family-owned business, and one thing I noticed right off, it was a very laid-back culture, and they wanted to grow, wanted to build out the company. People would come in at 9, leave at 11:30, come back at 1 from lunch, leave at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, wearing sandals. And if you ask them about it, they would say, well, that's just the way it is here. And I said, well, right off the bat, if you want to grow the company, you could pick up another 10, 20% just by having people come in a normal workday. And guess what? We did. It was painful. They didn't like it. And the company started showing the growth. And then what happened was, about a year later, with this more what I would call a growth-oriented approach or culture, there were aspects that the owner wanted to take back the way it was. And I said, listen, if you go back, you're going to get the same results that you had. And sure enough, that was important to them. They weren't committed to go all the way through. And next thing you know, you started getting the same type of results as you had before. And the business started suffering because of it. So it's a long play, and the owner really has to be committed.
That's a great story. And again, it's what you want, and if he wanted everybody to come and go as they pleased, and that made him happy and attracted the kind of people that he was looking for. It's his prerogative, right? You made the point at the very beginning of this conversation. It's your business. So what is it that you want to accomplish with it? And I've seen people do that, and that's okay, right? So it's their business. Mm-hmm. One of the major things I wanted to touch on today, you've got 7 points, almost like a checklist that you have put together. And I want to take the remainder of our time today, if possible, to kind of go through those 7 points that I think really make it crystal clear if you look at them in total, but look at each one and understand what that issue is and how to deal with it. So why don't you lead us through that discussion on a point-by-point basis?
Sure. Well, I'll go ahead and share the screen with the audience here, and so we can walk through. And it's really about, what I call the 7 steps to ensure the family business runs like a business. And we'll go through each one real quick, and we'll have a reminder at the end, but there's more information that Rick can share and we can share for further details. Number one, everyone has a job they're accountable for. Okay, and what do I mean by that? I've seen family businesses where, let's say, the spouse loves to drop in on meetings. And a problem with that is, even though they may not have a specific title, they're still a spouse with the owner, and it can be very disruptive to meetings. You may have to stop what you're doing, get them up to speed, etc. So number one, I say, is make sure that everyone, that if they're associated with the business and they're part of the family, they have a job that they're accountable for. Another approach that's quite common is, we talked a little bit earlier about perhaps family members that maybe had roles in the company but didn't have a lot of experience outside of the company. And you'll see that a lot of experts, including myself, would agree that it's not a bad thing for them to go work somewhere else for a few years. Have the experience of working for, say, a tough boss or a demanding boss, or somewhere they're really held accountable for delivery. That's great experience that they can then bring back to the family itself, and helping run the business that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
One thing on your number 2 point that I would, in the back of my mind, is very important, because I've come across this several times, and the fact that when you bring family, particularly your children or young people, in other words, people that haven't had business experience, to work for someone else, if nothing else, gives them an idea of what business is about, not just classes in college or whatnot, but gives them an idea, so that when they come into business, they hopefully won't be so critical of this, or they won't recognize this or that. A year or two working somewhere else, or a couple places or whatever, it's just excellent experience, because if they come right out of school, a lot of times they may have held a job after school, that kind of thing, but they really don't understand the dynamics of business, and it slows down their growth and their opportunity to be a real contributor.
See, that's a great point, Rick, because, if you take a family member that says goes through college, graduates, and then comes into the family business, all right, they've never experienced that dynamic of performance equals, say, job security, right? They always, okay, I'm going to work for the family business, and okay, I can sort of do what I need to do, or I do what I may want to do, excuse me. Whereas if you work for somebody else, your livelihood is directly correlated to your performance for the job. Now, you may have money, or the family may have money, but whether or not you come to work every day and your performance there, you really have to earn it. And that's a special lesson, because when you go to work for a family-owned business, even if you're a family member, it also helps you understand the perspective of the non-family members that they're going through. And I think it's, it doesn't work for all families and not all family members, but ones that I've seen have been really successful have been ones that have worked somewhere else for some length of time. Moving on, step number 3, when work's discussed, whether it's at home, at work, or wherever, if the company is brought up, the owner is the boss, even at home. Okay, let me tell you why it's so important. You're the business owner. You've got your executive team there, your leadership team. It's Friday afternoon. You're talking about a very critical topic, maybe strategy of the company, maybe budget. And then you make a decision, and your leadership team takes off, and they said, okay, this is it. We're moving forward. And then all of a sudden, as I joke a little bit, Sunday afternoon dinner comes up, business is brought up. And then guess what? Junior is over here and wants to go down a different path. Junior convinces the owner that a change needs to occur. Monday morning, the owner comes in, makes a change. What's happened? The confidence in the leadership team, or the confidence that the leadership team has in the owner's decision-making has now dropped significantly. What do? Do we do what he said? Do we wait? Or something like that. And using that family influence to what I would say, whether it's jump over lines of management or undue influence, can really be a problem. And so I advise clients, listen, if it's business, owner is a boss. If it's not business, you can have a great time as a family, but don't mix the two or it can really cause problems.
That's a real good piece of advice. I often wonder what my father said, no discussion of business at the dinner table. Now I know. I thought it was because he wanted a family to get together and be family, but you make a great point. Well, once again, we're at the end of this segment. We need to take a short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. And when we come back, we're going to have the third part of this discussion on how to work successfully in a family business. So I hope you'll stick around and we'll be right back with you.
Did you know there are more than 790 abused and neglected children currently in foster care in Montgomery County? Will you help make a difference? I'm Allie Stevens with Casa Child Advocates of Montgomery County. We train and support volunteers to be the voice of children in the foster care system. Kids are removed from their home because of abuse and neglect, and we need volunteers just like you to advocate for these children. To learn more about becoming an advocate, please visit CasaSpeaksForKids.com. That's CasaSpeaksForKids.com.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the third part of our discussion today with Mr. Rich Hall, who is the principal and founder of the Rich Hall Group. And we're discussing family businesses and how to successfully run or ensure that that business runs like a business. Rich, when we went to break, you had taken us through 3 of the 7 points that you made as far as key things to check off when you want to run your business like a business. Let's pick up with number 4 and keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. One of the things that's equally as important, and we've alluded to a little bit earlier, was limit the financial aspect to job-related expenses. It's not the cookie jar fund, or it's not, the expectation of, I need something as a family member, so let me dip in and pull out some money here, or this family member needs a extra income. It can just make it really tough to manage, because over time, the more family members you get, the more dipping into the pot. Usually what I try to do is, again, run it like a business, establish the role, establish compensation for the role. And then there's other ways. If the family owner wants to share some of the financial success with family members, there's other ways of doing that, where it's not going directly from, say, the budget or overrunning expense accounts. There's ways of sharing profits and things like that are, it shares in the profits rather than could potentially hurt the company. Hey, step 5, I always like to say, all employees should be treated equally and fairly, regardless of the family relationship. Now, number one, a phrase that I say, not everyone should be treated equally, but they should be treated fairly. Okay. If you've got a high performer that you're promoting, it's okay. For me, for example, one of the things I always hated with much larger companies, you'd have a job role and that job role ties to a particular salary range. What if you've got an outstanding employee and that year they're doing better than the standard budgeted, say 3%? Okay. My view, you take care of them. You treat them well. If it means a bigger increase, that may go against the norm, but it's the right thing to do for the employee and the retention of the employee. Okay. Now in the family-owned business, again, part of our theme is treat family members, like employees. But here's the other thing that can occur as well. People know, again, hey, this is a family member. If I'm good friends with a family member, it'll do well for me. So cliques may join, or you can get in meetings and an employee has a very important, say a non-family member has a very important point to make. And then a family member speaks up and everyone sides with them, or that undue influence. And my thing is to get and maximize the success of the company and the capabilities of the company, always try to treat the employees fairly, regardless of the relationship. And if you start seeing cliques occur where maybe if you're not a family member, or related or have a good relationship with family members or something like that you're being impacted, you need to search that out and try to squash that, because that can really cause problems with the company. Step number 6, this is a big one. This goes back and relates to what we were talking about, whether it's employees going to work somewhere else as part of their career or just the development, is identify training gaps for family members and actually get them trained for and here's the thing that I'd say, not only for the role they're in, but train them, just like Rick said, for the business that they're in. I can't tell you the number of family members that are up and coming within the family, and I'd ask them, how does your company really make money? Or what's the why behind your business? And they didn't know, because all they knew is, well, hey, it's a family business. Here's how I come in. And then at some point, the owner is going to want to transition in life. It could be to exit the business and pass it on to the kids. It could be to sell it out. It could be to, say, step into a chairman's or a CEO type role and then turn over the day-to-day operations to the next generation. The thing is, you should always be trying to improve your family members, your employees, and the training that can go along with that.
You hit a hot button for me there, because small businesses really, many of them, the owners don't get the idea that you need to continue training the people. And I think in particular, family member, junior comes in and has a college education or whatever, and you think he knows it all, So he absolutely gets left out of the queue to be eligible or needing training. So that's a great point. Very subtle, but very, very important.
I think one of the biggest, you can read the percentages out there, but the success factors of multi-generational family businesses are very low, going from first to second generation, and then especially second to third. And this is one of the top gaps or issues for that, is the owner grew it, they knew the business, and then there's a drop off when, whether it's junior or the daughter steps in to take over, and they never really truly understood how all the business works. Now they're in that key role and they don't have training or experience to draw from. And I always say, don't wait until that occurs. Make it part of, the ongoing business, so to speak, is that increased responsibility, increased training, identify the gaps. And we all have gaps of what we need to do and to accomplish, to be ready when that opportunity comes up. And say that sort of leads into number 7. Consider a non-family member as either an executive, or perhaps bring in a coach or a mentor to help with that. Okay. I played in all of those roles. I've been the executive non-family member that was brought in to run a company. And I can tell you, it can be tough, but it's also very rewarding. I had an example one time where a family member wanted approval for budget for a particular project. And I said, okay, what's the value to the company? I need a return on investment. When am I going to get it? How much do you need? Why do you need it? And when do you need it? Do you need it all up front? Do you need it scheduled? They had never been through that. All they had accustomed to was, hey, I need money, and perhaps, cause enough of a, scene or something like that. And eventually the family would say, okay, well, give them what they need. So we went through that exercise. And after it was over, and there was 2 or 3 heated iterations back and forth, the family member says, you know what? I see exactly now what you're talking about. Why would we spend the money if there's not a payback? Or maybe we balance. Or, you know what? What if I don't spend money in this area over here? Can I take part of that budget and apply it over here? Now they started thinking like a business person. And even though it was painful at first, they came back later and said, now I understand more about how to run the business. Now, it can be tough as an outsider. And a lot of times when the owner is trying to affect change within the company, and maybe even as a, with the owner itself, but then also, trying to grow and its impact on the family members. A lot of times one of the best approach is to bring in somebody from the outside to run with it. That's what I do. That's what Rick does. There's some other professionals out there. And the reasoning, I'll give you the example. How many times growing up, did you have kids and you send them to a neighbor or the neighbor's house and they were great, really polite? The neighbor comes back and says, hey, I can't believe you have such a well-behaved child. Okay. A lot of times kids have become conditioned where they may not listen to a parent because they think of it as being critical. Whereas a professional from the outside can come in and really, whether it's mentor, be available. Because I know one of the biggest successes I had seen was as a coach to a family member, when they would run into situations they weren't quite sure about how to handle, their natural instinct was to bully their way through it. I'm a family member, I should have my way, I should be able to do this. Instead, we replace that with, hey, you have access to a resource that when you get into a situation where you're not quite sure about, pick up the phone and call your mentor or call your coach and talk through it. And it really helped from maturity and growth of the company. And it also was a great method to affect change. I don't know. What do you think, Rick? I'm sure you've been through this a lot as well.
Oh, yeah. But unfortunately, we're out of time. This is a great conversation that could go on for quite a while. And perhaps if you're open, we'll have you back and continue perhaps talking about the mentor's role in a family business and how important it is. Rich, though, before we leave, though, I want to give people the information of how to get in touch with you or to look at this article that you've gone through the slides so they can connect with what we were talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you go to my website, richhallgroup.com, you can find the contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Love to have a conversation with you. No cost to talk, obviously, and I just enjoy meeting great people and trying to help people wherever I can. If you look on the resources tab, you will see a lot further detail of what we talked about today. So if you weren't able to capture all the slides or the conversations, go and check it out. There's no cost for it at all. You just download the PDF, and I hope it helps you out. and I hope you really enjoy it. And thanks again for having me, Rick.
Well, Rich, as always, you bring such great information to the table, and hopefully I'll have another conversation before the year is out. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go to a break, and we come back, we'll continue the program here on the Weekly Business Hour. Thanks.
What is homelessness? Have you seen parents struggle to find a job without having transportation or childcare? What about the children sleeping in cars with nothing to eat? Families shouldn't have to struggle to survive, and children should not be homeless. Family Promise of Montgomery County serves the needs of homeless families and their children. Learn about ways you can help and learn about partnership opportunities at www.familypromiseofmc.org or call our day center at 936-441-8778.
Second Saturday Divorce Workshop provides unbiased information to help you understand your options and move forward with your life. This divorce workshop is for you if you are contemplating divorce, in the process of divorce, already filed for divorce, or post-divorce. You will explore the emotional, legal, and financial aspects of divorce from professionals who have guided others through divorce. For more information on this divorce workshop, contact secondsaturdaywoodlands.com or call 832-375-0900.
Hope you enjoyed our conversation with Rich Hall. And as promised at the top of the hour, we have a brand new segment for the show. It's hosted by Patrick Woke. He is the head of the McNair School of Entrepreneurship and Free Enterprise at the University of St. Thomas. It is entitled Heart of the Hustle. Interviews with very successful entrepreneurs around the country who have worked and built businesses from scratch. And I think they provide a lot of insight that would help many of you. I know I found them very interesting and useful in the work that I do. And before we listen to that conversation, the first Heart of the Hustle, I want to remind you, send us email. Send me an email. Comment about the show. Question for one of our visitors. Anything you'd like to talk about. Comments. How we can do things better. Or if you just got a question about your own business, I love to answer those, may even answer them on the air. So send those emails to onebestconsult, that's the number one, bestconsult@gmail.com, onebestconsult@gmail.com. Now listen to the Heart of the Hustle.
Hello, my name is Dr. Patrick Woke, and I will be the host today on the Heart of the Hustle. We are coming today from the McNair Center at the University of St. Thomas. Welcome to the Heart of the Hustle. Today is our first episode, and we're very lucky to have Jeremy Jenson with us today. My name is Dr. Patrick Woke, and I'll be your host for today's show. Jeremy is coming in from Encore Search Partnerships or Partners?
Encore Search Partners.
Encore Search Partners. He's the CEO over there. And Encore Search Partners, for many of you out there know, it's one of the fastest growing search firms in Houston, if not the fastest growing. Many years has been the fastest growing. One of the largest search firms in all of Houston, if maybe not even Texas, right? And he's won many awards from Inc., local magazines and such, as one of the fastest growing and best businesses to work for. In fact, you won a couple awards in regard to one of the best places to work for.
3 years in a row.
3 years in a row. So if you're looking for a job, apply to Jeremy.
We're hiring, absolutely.
There you go. There you go. That being said, it's nice to always look back at the accolades, the things you're doing. It would be also good to hear a little bit about, your business and the future plans. We were talking a little bit earlier on about your future plans and about kind of like where you're at in your business. So maybe you could tell us where your business is at this time and where you're looking to go maybe like 1 or 2 years in the future.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on. Such a pleasure to be here. I know we've had an opportunity to work on a few things in the past, and I love the students here at the entrepreneurship program. So Encore Search Partners, we're a 27-person executive search firm in Houston. We're pretty much experts in about 4 different verticals. And so that includes wealth management recruiting, law firm recruiting, oil and gas, and then also industrial. And so when you look at what we're looking to accomplish on the horizon, we want to eventually diversify into recruiting in the public accounting space, the investment banking space, and then also engineering consulting. And so started the firm back in 2013. Last year, a little bit of a down year due to COVID. Companies were laying off instead of hiring, but we still did about $5.5 million in revenue on about 150 transactions. And for your entrepreneurship students, they'll be glad to hear we did about 30% EBITDA on that. So to give you some insight into how lucrative the professional services industry can be.
Very impressive, very impressive. And I'm sure it's really nice to look at it today, but when we look back, at the early beginnings, those starting times, let's tell us a little bit, let's go back in time a little bit to those early days when you're first starting out. How did Jeremy start out in this industry? Where did it begin? I think we're all very interested in hearing that story.
Sure. So funny story, and I'll try to keep it brief, but I was 24 years old, working for a $50 million pipe valve and fitting distributor, working directly for the CEO. My base salary was about $60,000. My fiance at the time was a petroleum engineer at BP, making about $99,000. And so here I was, newly engaged, and I had this macho man complex at 24 years old to where I needed to make more money than my wife. And so I went into my boss's office. I said, Bob, I want $100,000. I've made you this much money. I've saved you this much money. He said, Jeremy, you're an invaluable asset to the team. Let me talk to our CFO and I'll get back to you. So he brought me in 2 days later and he offered me $90,000 at 24. And this was, 2009, right? And I accepted it, but then it permeated a little bit and I decided to resign 2 weeks later in order to start my own firm. And so I will say that it was the macho man complex, meaning that I needed to make more money than my fiance, that inspired me starting my own practice.
That's an amazing story when we look back at the macho man.
Yeah.
Is there, when you look at your family or the way you were growing up, is there anything that really kind of, that the initial spark or something that did you know that you were going to be an entrepreneur later in life? And do these amazing things that you do today?
Sure. So I wouldn't say that I grew up wanting to be a business owner. To be quite honest, if you would have asked 9-year-old me what I wanted to do, I would have said I want to be the CEO of Coca-Cola. At the time they had the polar bear commercials where they were going through the ice, and Coca-Cola was all about branding and marketing, and it really resonated with, childhood me. And so I always knew I wanted to be CEO. Unfortunately, and again, I shared this on the last time that we did a Zoom meeting, I never finished my bachelor's degree at University of Houston. And that's one of my life's regrets. I started making six figures when I was 21 years old and then eventually went into a different arena where I had to rebuild at 23, 24. And then at 25, I was making six figures. And so I never went back. But I think that if your life's dream is to be a CEO, and you don't have a clear path to do that in corporate America, the easiest way to accomplish that is by starting your own business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me ask one question, and just to kind of get your feel on this. Mm-hmm. Do you feel, you mentioned that you had some regret in regard to not finishing that bachelor's. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's one of the things that drives you, in today, or is that something that kind of, you look at all these people that got their accolades, MBAs, PhDs. Does it make you want to feel like you, and don't give me any position wrong with that, but like one up them or show them that you can be just as good as them and you don't have to
Not at all, no. For many years, I was super insecure about it. In many settings, I would often lie and say that I had a bachelor's degree. And it was all my own insecurities, being married to somebody who was summa cum laude, salutatorian of her class at Georgia Tech with a dual major in chemical and biomedical engineering, right? And so it really wasn't until I started probably making over 200,000 to where I really felt comfortable publicizing it, right? But I would say that the way that it applies to my life now is I love hiring young, hungry, aggressive, ambitious individuals that never finished their bachelor's degree and giving them an opportunity. And what that breeds is loyalty. And not to say that if you get your degree, you have a lack of loyalty or work ethic, right? But, I'm less exposed to those individuals getting recruited out of the organization because so many different employers mandate having a bachelor's degree at the very least. So I actually love giving opportunities to people that don't have degrees. And we're about 50-50 on whether you have a degree or not at our firm.
That's brilliant. I love how you took something that challenged you in your past, and you've become clean with it and clear with it. And at the same time, you've allowed to other people who've had similar situations, similar challenges, and empowered them. That's really amazing. Let me ask, we started talking a little bit about this in regard to the background of starting your business. Tell me a little bit about how that's, you talked a little about how you got the big salary bump, 90,000. I'm sure you were excited about that. But when you jumped in do your first business that first year, what was it like? Tell me some of those growing pains, some of those excitements and some of those growing pains, because I think a lot of business owners there, love to hear about that.
Yeah. So the first thing that I'll share with people that are aspiring entrepreneurs is that it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. The first year I did 81,000 in revenue. The next year, 212, 297, 597, 686, 797, 989, and then 1.2. So it really wasn't until our 6th year that we hit that $1 million mark. And so I would encourage you guys to be patient, work the process, right? As far as growing pains, I would say one of the things that I learned very early on is if I was the one doing the work, it was always going to inhibit my ability to grow. Right. And so what I focused on was just selling, right? Because there's nobody more qualified to sell other than the passionate owner that believes in the product or service. Right. And so when individuals were ready to buy, then I had staff that would fulfill that business. And I think that's one of the common downfalls of entrepreneurs is they stay a solo shop, right? One employee, maybe two. And they're the ones actually doing the work, and it inhibits their ability to grow. And in that case, it's not really a company. It's just a lifestyle business.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And it's very exciting to hear the growth of your business and development. And, as an entrepreneur, previously a serial entrepreneur, I understand a lot of the challenges. And one of the things that, was always a challenge or difficulty for me is the things that you have to give up in order to be successful. When you look back at the things that you had to give up, or maybe the things that were taken from you, what are the things that you look back that you're regretful for, or maybe that maybe you want to change in the future?
Sure.
What are those things that have been?
Yeah. So we're operating with a finite number of time in this slot right here, and so I could probably talk for a couple of hours on that. But one of the things that I'll share very briefly is I was married to the love of my life for 9 years, and I've been married to my business for the last 11 years. Okay. And so, obviously business took somewhat of a precedent in my personal life, even over my wife, my children. And unfortunately, 2 years ago, my marriage ended in divorce. And so I would say that, I really wish that I found maybe a little bit more work-life balance early on and focused on the reason why I wanted to become a millionaire and not just becoming a millionaire.
That's an amazing thing. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that. I know it's challenging, when I myself has been through divorce, and I know it's a very difficult time. Is there anything that you're looking to do, as you were talking about work-life balance going forward, is there anything that you're looking to do or want to do to change your life into being a little more balanced or healthy?
Absolutely. So I would say that I've already achieved my goals, right, over the last two and a half years being single. 3 years ago, I joined a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization. And basically, it's a co-op of over 14,000 global entrepreneurs. In order to qualify, you have to own the company, and you have to do over $1 million in revenue. So it's mildly exclusive. But what that did was it created an environment where I could be around people that would motivate and inspire me to reach new heights that I didn't even know that I was capable of. And that's not only in my business, but in my personal life as well, with the freedom and flexibility and going on trips with them and doing exotic encounters and fine dining experiences and stuff like that. And so I would say that I've achieved a lot of freedom whenever it comes to time, right? And then also with me kind of splitting my time 50-50 inside of the office and outside of the office, it really allowed my team to grow more because I hired people to fill in the gaps, right? I wasn't the control freak anymore. And so I would say always surround yourself with people that are better than you. That way they can motivate and inspire you to reach new heights.
That's an amazing story, and I appreciate you sharing.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one thing that I'd like to, we had a couple of things left in our show today, but one thing I'd like to do is, when those golden nuggets, that we have that kind of those truths that we come in business and in life, what would be like one golden nugget that you want to share with our audience today that really has been profoundly, that you've learned in business or you've learned in your life that you'd want to share and you want people to remember in the audience today?
Yeah, sure. So I'll just kind of reiterate, surround yourself with people that are better than you, right? If you're the smartest guy in the room, then you're in the wrong room, right? And so that's where I want your audience to really resonate today. And if that means that you have to be in certain professional organizations or student organizations of individuals that have a similar end game, right? Pour that knowledge into one another, and you'd be surprised at what you're able to accomplish.
And that's a beautiful thing to leave the audience with, and I really appreciate. Jeremy, thank you very much for your time today and sharing with our audience. I think you've really showed a lot of different sides, the success and the heart of the entrepreneur, the real challenges that we go through as being entrepreneurs, and I really appreciate your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me out.
Our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today from the Heart of the Hustle. Great episode with Jeremy Jenson. See you at next episode and next Heart of the Hustle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's show. I hope you enjoyed our first installment in the Heart of the Hustle. Again, I think it's a wonderful conversation, and Patrick has agreed to provide more of these in the future, so this will be a regular segment on the show from time to time. And as we turn our eyes towards the balance of your work week this week, I hope that you will do the things that will improve your business. I hope that you will join us again next Monday at 11 a.m. right here on Lone Star Community Radio, available on Facebook Live, available throughout social media. If you can't make it, then I encourage you to look for the recording. It's posted on the Wednesday following the Monday show, and it's out there on social media. Go to the Weekly Business Hour page at Facebook, YouTube, on our website, onebestconsult.com, or right here at the station's website at irlonestar.com. So thank you again for joining us. I hope you'll come back next week. We have a wonderful guest that we recently had a conversation with. And until next week, as I said, be sure to keep your focus on what counts in your business. Thanks.